roll.
I kind of want to see this as like more me facilitating. And at any point, man, y'all got any questions, like make this an open forum. Let's kind of bounce ideas off each other and we can all get better. We all know there's more than one way to skin a cat. So this is kind of how we have been doing things over time. Can everyone see my screen now? We all good?
Yes, sir.
Coach, we good? All right.
Yes, sir.
I thought you know, you couldn't really talk about the 3-4 defense and fire zones without putting a little Pittsburgh Steelers up there, little Dick LeBeau. So we'll be talking about the 3-4 defense and fire zones. Like I said, please feel free to ask questions. Let's all kind of collaborate and get together. Let me see here. Here we go. All right, this is me right here. My name is Kyle Hofman. I'm a defensive assistant at the University of West Florida. Been here for about 15 months now. My email address is up here, and then also my Twitter handle, which you know, you guys can find me on Twitter. Please feel free to reach out. Love to collaborate. I've been loving this opportunity we've had in the last month or two. You know, being stuck at home, but using it as an opportunity to get better and kind of meet people and connect in different ways that we wouldn't have been able to do under normal circumstances. So please feel free to reach out. A little bit about me, like I was telling Coach a minute ago, in the last 20 years, I've probably been, to a certain extent, at some point in everyone's shoes. Started out at the high school level back when I was about 19 years old. I was a varsity assistant defensive back coach for 6 years at Mountain Ridge High School in Glendale, Arizona, and I spent 1 year as a head freshman coach. I was under some really good head coaches there, and then in 2007 decided to jump over to Peoria Centennial High School. Spent 6 years there as the defensive backs coach on the varsity team and the special teams coordinator. We won 2 state championships. We were state runners up twice, and we lost in the semis twice. Head coach Richard Taylor there, phenomenal man. He's been the school's only head coach now, going on for 20-something years. So, I mean, I was really blessed to be under him and the rest of the staff basically throughout my 20s there at those 2 high schools. And that kind of helped lead me when I got about 30 years old. I applied, interviewed, and got hired as the head varsity football coach at Vintage High School in Napa, California. Spent 3.5 years as the head coach there. Again, really great opportunity, just, you know, 30 years old, fairly young to be a head coach. Make some mistakes, but learn from them. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity they gave me over there. Took about a year off of coaching. You won't see on here in 2017, I was a middle school flag football, co-ed football coach. And I say that because at every level I've been at, you know, you take something from wherever you've been. So it was another great opportunity. And then in the fall of 2018, I ended up going back to Arizona. I was at Phoenix College as the defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, and I coached the defensive backs. With the decision they made out there to eliminate and shut down all those junior college programs, kind of had a decision to make. So then I came and visited my family over here near Pensacola, Florida in that Christmas. Went up to West Florida, met Coach Shinnick and the staff, and then about a month later decided just to pack my car, whatever fit in my you know, old broke down to 2-door Honda Accord, just whatever fit in the trunk in the back seat, and drove out here and basically walked on. You know, you talk about walk-on players. I was essentially a walk-on coach here at the University of West Florida, and I've been on, you know, been fortunate to stick around now for about 15, 16 months. I ended up assisting Coach Crutch, our defensive line coach with the D-line, and then I helped our special teams coordinator, Coach Shu, who's now at Azusa Pacific as the defensive coordinator, and did a bunch of just assistant defensive work for the staff. Currently, I'm recruiting Georgia, a couple of junior colleges, and the transfer portal. I think it's important just to understand everyone's journey. You know, been coaching, been fortunate to coach now for 20 years. Been at every level. Like I said, middle school flag football co-head coach, freshman, varsity, junior college, and now Division II West Florida. So just kind of where I've been over the course of my career. Before I kind of get into the scheme and the X's and O's and some of that fire zone stuff, I thought it'd be important for me to kind of convey really the most significant part of being at West Florida is the culture of the program, which carries over to the culture of our defense and basically our defense's backbone, the characteristics and the principles and the expectations we have. So first and foremost, we talk about technique and scheme. As you can see here, alignment, stance, technique, keys, and responsibilities. And that's kind of what we talk about as being our arete, which is our program theme. Secondly, we talk about having great passion. So playing with grit, the ability to strain, playing with great effort, intensity, desire, enthusiasm, and a great work ethic. And those are the things we talk about which lead to swarming on our defense. And then thirdly, we talk about having playmaking ability. At the end of the day, we got to be able to produce. So that's tackles, making TFLs, sacks, and then taking the ball away with interceptions and forced fumbles. So again, our three principles, that first one, technique and scheme, leads to our arete. Arete is our program's overarching theme. Essentially, the word arete translates from Greek to the word excellence. So we talk about excellence in our defense, and that's our basics again, our alignment, our stance, our technique, our keys, and those things, just being excellent in basics of defense. Then secondly, we talk about swarm. We talk about pursuing to the football, playing hard, playing with extra effort. Again, it's that desire, that enthusiasm, and those things. And we talk about swarming to eat. A lot of people say run to the ball, and we talk about really running to the ball with a purpose, swarming to eat. And then thirdly, we talk about production, which is that playmaking ability. And we grade guys, and we give points for tackles, takeaways, sacks, ball disruptions, and things like that, which I'll go over in a minute. We break those things down between the coaching staff and the players. So the first thing, arete, which is that technique, all of our fundamentals, technique, stance, alignment, keys, and fundamentals. We say that's 60% on us as coaches. So that's our ability as a coach to teach the players. And then 40% of that is on the players, and that's their willingness to learn and their ability and desire to execute. Secondly, our swarm, we say that's 20% on us as coaches to inspire and motivate, and then 80% of that's on the players and being self-motivated and holding each other accountable. And then thirdly, that playmaking ability or production, we say that's about a 50-50 split. 50% of that is on us as coaches to put the players in the right position and give them the tools to be successful. And then 50% of that is on the players, and that's them possessing the ability and the desire to make plays. So again, a little bit about the principles of our defense. We talked about production. I want to just take a minute here to kind of show how we give our guys points and how we determine a player's overall production. So players earn points, and they have different weights, obviously. We got swarm to eat, ball disruption attempt. We call that a beat at, big hit, assisted tackles. We talk about pocket disruption, pressuring the quarterback or altering his passing throw. Destruction plays, extra effort plays. Again, that's all that swarm to eat. We get points for third and fourth down stops, PBUs, batted balls, tackles, TFL, sacks. I know I'm going through this pretty quickly. Forced fumbles, recovering a fumble, an interception, a safety, and a defensive touchdown. And then guys will also lose points, obviously, for a technique or a footwork error, right? That's our arete stuff. Losing a gap, mental error, Pizza Hut, which I could explain later if we have time. Committing a penalty, missing a tackle. We talk about MOBPs, missed opportunities for big plays. Committing a critical error. We will see a couple critical errors here when I pull the film up just to show you guys the good and the bad. Giving up a gimme play, and then a personal foul. So that's kind of how we talk about grading our guys. And then here is an example of a game grade sheet. I blacked out the names for y'all. But here's all the positives that we give points for, and then here's the negatives they lose points for. And then it's broken down into how many plays they had. In the green here, you can see their arete grade. And in the red here, you can see their swarm percentage. And then here's some minuses for loafs. These Google Sheets are all formulated so that once we grade the film on a Saturday or Sunday, we put in, how many tackles they had and all the positives and negatives. We get their overall score here on the far right, how many points they earned or what was their overall production in the game. So just an example there of how we determine a player's production. We have 6 defensive game goals every game. And we don't really put numbers on some of these things. You'll see we just talk about regulating certain facets of the game. So number 1, we talk about is swarming to eat, being greater than, so 90% or above. We talk about winning the turnover battle or having 3 takeaways. So we want 3 takeaways, but we also understand that if the offense gives up 4, 3 is not enough. We need to win the turnover battle. So if the offense gives up 4, then we need 5. If for some reason the offense is struggling and gives up 5, we need 6. So we talk about winning the turnover battle or getting 3. Limiting explosive plays, I think everyone knows, when you limit explosive plays, it significantly increases your chance of winning the game. We talk about no free or cheap touchdowns, and then we talk about regulating the run game based on what the opponent does on a regular basis. And then we talk about regulating the red zone. So when teams get down to the red zone, holding the field goals or stopping them for no points. And then lastly, kind of our essentials for success, without talking about ability or talent, we feel like there's 3 things. If you do these 3 things, you're going to be successful on any given Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Number 1 is swarm to eat, playing with great passion and pursuing the football. Number 2 is tackling. And then number 3 is disrupting the ball. That means affecting the quarterback's throw, and that could mean punching, raking, stripping, or any way of disrupting the ball carrier and taking the ball away from him. So that's kind of the fundamentals and all the things that we talk about, kind of the backbone of our defense. Before we get into any scheme, schematics, X's and O's, that's the culture, the backbone of our defense. Okay? So when we get into fire zones here, I think it's important to ask the questions, the basic questions: who, what, when, why, where, and how, if I said those correctly. So first and foremost, what is a fire zone? Well, conceptually, it's a 5-man pressure and playing a 3 underneath and 3 deep pass coverage behind it. And then the premise of it is that you're bringing pressure to disrupt the offense, being sound in both the run and pass game without having to play man principles behind it, essentially having to play cover 0 or 1 behind it. Because if you do the math, we all know when you bring 5, you still got 6 guys left. A fire zone isn't the only coverage that you have to play behind it. There are alternatives. So understanding that. Okay, I think you need to ask the question, why would you benefit from running a fire zone? Like I said, there's other alternatives. At some point in our career, when I was coaching back in Arizona, and, we had really good players, I think our best defense was we ran the cat defense, where we said, hey, you cover that cat, you cover that cat, you cover that cat, and we were good to go. We got after the quarterback, and we were good to go. So understanding why a fire zone might be most beneficial for you with your personnel and what you're trying to do. So some of the reasons behind you might want to run a fire zone. The beauty of installing it is that the rules can remain fairly simple, okay? You get a 5-man pressure and you're safe on the back end. You still got a 3 deep behind it. If you're playing with lesser athletes, there is less of a risk behind it. There's the risk reward is better for you. You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to sell out and play a man coverage 0 or 1 behind it. And going along with that, you don't have to implement man-to-man formational adjustments, whether you get 3-by-1 or essentially even 4-by-1. You have to worry about man adjustments with motion. You have to worry about when the offense comes out and runs squeeze or condensed formations. You can stay fairly simple with your fire zones behind it. We feel like it's a good opportunity for us to dictate the game and be more concerned and spend more time with what we're doing versus what they're doing. We also like our matchup principles in the fire zones and having our 6 defenders the ability to get their eyes back on the quarterback and not be running with their back to the quarterback in man coverage. A couple more whys that you might want to look at. We can force the quarterback to throw hot. He's got a side adjust, and our second level defenders can then rally to the football. And then we also feel the pre-snap movement is key to affecting the calls and execution of the protection. We also feel like we have a great effect on the quarterback's decision-making and making him get rid of the ball when our secondary can be there to make the tackle. Okay, I think the other question you need to ask is when is it best for you to dial up a fire zone or to call on a fire zone? Understanding down and distance. Personnel. How are they using the running back in protection? Are they putting them out and using a 5-man protection where if you bring a fire zone, you get 5 one-on-ones? or are they keeping the running back in? 11 personnel. When the tight end's in the game and the running back's in the game, understanding if they're on the same side or opposite sides and how they're using the tight end and running back in protection and what they're doing in certain down and distance and personnel groupings, and when a fire zone is most beneficial against those certain things. Also, having a plan of 10 personnel, 11 personnel, maybe even 12 personnel in certain down and distances. And understanding using your fire zone pressure, do you want to bring it to or away from the running back? How are they using the O-line? Are they sliding them? Or are they staying big on big? How are they protecting the quarterback with the running back staying in? With the tight end of the game, is it more beneficial to bring your pressure to or away from him? So essentially, you want to bring your pressure to the three-man surface or away from it. And then you can also ask the question, is it better just to bring your pressure from the field or the boundary based on what they're doing down in distance? Grouping. So having a plan of attack when you're blitzing. And then also just understanding the vulnerabilities. Obviously, we'll see here in a minute, you could be unsound in the immediate flat areas, but then understanding when to use those fire zones and down and distance when you're okay giving up an immediate flat throw. And then the same, general cover three vulnerabilities. Okay, so for us at UWF, I went and did some data kind of when and how we used our fire zones in the last 2 years. Just give you some real quick background information. In 2019, we played 15 games. We had 48 snaps of a form of a fire zone out of 1,098 total snaps, which equated to about 4.3% of the time, okay? Or essentially, we ran about 3 fire zones per game out of 73 snaps. We did 17 of those on a second down. Most of them were second and long. That was 35% of those. And we were only effective 65% of the time, 11 out of 17. Out of those 48 snaps last season, 16 of them came on third down, 33% of the time, and we were much more effective. We ended up getting off the field 13 out of 16 of those snaps, 81%. We used a fire zone in 13 out of 48 snaps in 2018, okay? That equated to 28% of the time on first down, and we were pretty highly effective there. 10 out of those 13 were effective, or 77%. And then we had 2 snaps of the fire zone on fourth down. That was 4% of the time, and we got off the field both times. So 100% effective using a fire zone last year on fourth down. I also broke down here how many snaps we ran of a fire zone per game. So in game 1 versus Carson Newman, 2 snaps. In game 2 at Shorter, 4 snaps. In game 3, we were at home versus Virginia Lynchburg. We had 3 snaps of a fire zone. In game 4 at home versus Delta State, 4 snaps. In game 5 at home against Mississippi College, we had 0 snaps. They're a triple option team. Coming off the bye week, we were at West Georgia. We played a fire zone 7 snaps. We went to FIT in week 7 and played 6 snaps of the fire zone. We went to Valdosta week 8 at home against North Greenville. We had 4 snaps of a fire zone. Week 9, we were at Valdosta. We played a fire zone for 3 snaps. And then our final regular season game at home against West, we had 2 snaps. That made up about, I want to say, 38 snaps in 10 games. In the second round of the playoffs at Valdosta, we did not run a fire zone against them the second time. In that first game, they weren't very effective, so we went with a different route. Third round of the playoffs, week 13, we were at Lenore Rhine. Again, a tough team to run fire zone against, so we only ran 1 snap of it. Semifinals, national championship semifinals, we were at Ferris State, 2 fire zones. And then in the national championship against Minnesota Mankato, we had 8 snaps of a fire zone. So that's kind of, I broke it down for you. You can see some games we liked it better against what they were doing, and some games it wasn't good for us, so we didn't do it. So understanding, again, if I go back, understanding when is it best to run a fire zone and having a purpose to it. All right, I want to just take a minute to kind of just go through some basic understanding of the underneath zones. Is pretty across the board traditional. Most teams break down the 5 underneath zones into having a flat from the sideline to the top of the numbers, having a curl from the top of the numbers to about the hash, and then having the hook area in between the two hashes. So just want to take a quick minute. I didn't want to just make any assumptions. I want to go over that real quick. I want to kind of also just go over what a traditional cover 3 looks like, in quotes, traditional. A traditional cover 3 has you rushing 4 guys, whether you're using a 3 down or a 4 down, and then having 4 guys play the underneath 5 zones, and then you have your 3 deep coverage behind it. So understanding that when you have 4 guys playing the 5 underneath zones, they all have to play from one to the next. So, for example, our outside linebackers here, they're going to play the outside of the curl to the inside of the flat. Our 2 inside linebackers are going to play the outside of the hook to the inside of the curl. So using these 4 players to play 5 zones. When we get into a fire zone concept now, we're losing one of those 4 underneath players. We're still playing a 3 deep, but now we have 1 less player in the underneath zones. So the way that we talk about playing it is our middle linebacker or whoever's in the middle is going to play that hook still, but now one of our outside linebackers and one of our safeties is going to end up playing what we call the seam curl flat, or sometimes people use the acronym SCIF. So I'm going to go over some different route combinations with an outside linebacker or a safety coming down to about 8 yards playing that seam curl flat technique on a number 2 receiver, okay? So again, our seam curl flat player, I give her inside out, essentially want him to hang and bang in the seam, and then he'll expand late to the curl. And essentially our philosophy is we're going to let take them to the flat late. Like we talked about earlier, one of the vulnerabilities is the immediate flat, but that's what you need to understand. That's what you're giving up down in distance wise. So first scenario, number 2 works vertical. Our seam curl flat player here, whether it's an outside linebacker or a safety, he's going to take away any hot route by number 2. We're going to tell him to collision and then carry him up the seam. Okay, he's going to carry him to about 12 or 15 yards, and then with his eyes on number 1, and then based on what number 1 does, he can let number 2 go to the corner, or basically just play that, like we said, play that curl and then break on the flat if number 1 did sit it down. But we're going to tell that number 2, that seam curl flat player, to collision number 2 inside out and carry him up the seam. All right. Second scenario here is number 2 is working in. So first thing we need to assume is it's some sort of hot route, whether it's going to be a slant or an under. Okay. If he works underneath us real shallow, we're not going to chase him. We're going to communicate and pass it off to the hook player, low hole player. If he, and we also know for every under, there is a what? For every under, there's an over. So we know if our number 2 goes under, we're expecting some sort of over coming either from the opposite side number 2 or from the outside number 1 here running a dig. Now, if our number 2 is running the over, we're going to collision and carry it and reroute it and then sink up here in the curl and then get our eyes out to number 1 coming in on a dig, or late the under coming from the other side of the field. I'll kind of stop there for a second. Coach G, we good? Do you have any questions at all?
Nothing right now, Coach.
We're good? All right,
Sure.
Cool. 2, basic route possibilities here when we play this seam curl flat is number 2 could run that immediate flat. Okay, the last thing we want this guy to do is chase that immediate flat. That would vacate a huge window here for the offense. So as soon as number 2 goes out, we tell our seam curl flat players to be patient and hold and get to the top of his area and get his body in the window, because we know, just like earlier, with every under, there's an over, right? We also know for every out, there's a what? There's some sort of incoming. So as soon as 2 goes out, my eyes get to 1. I'm looking for that slant, that curl, or possibly a dig by 1 on my side. If 1 eliminates himself, I'm still going to stay in that curl. I'm going to get big vision and then let the quarterback's throw take me to the flat. Okay. Lastly, our seam curl flat player gets a block by number 2, whether it's a tight end or a slot, we get a block. Okay. Then we're going to understand our run fit. If it is play action and we get past, we execute what we call a statue technique. Okay. He's essentially going to hold until he knows it's a pass. Then he's going to work for depth. Once he sees a run as he statues, he will then trigger either into his gap if he has a gap responsibility, or he will trigger on run and fit where he needs to fit. Okay. So that's kind of some of our 4 seam, curl, flat route combinations. I also just want to take a second to talk about when we have a 5-man pressure, we have what we call is we have 5 kill zones. So again, I just kind of drew up here, a basic kind of America's blitz here. We got a long stick with 2 guys coming off the edge. And essentially the quarterback now has an upfield shoulder on each side. He's got a near number on each side. And then that extra 5th rusher becomes the bullseye player or go right down the middle of the quarterback. So based on the blitz pass that we call, I'm not going to get into any kind of too much exotic pressures or games up front today. It's more on the back end. But understanding that you have a kill zone. So the linebackers have a designated near number or bullseye for the blitzing linebackers or the defensive linemen. So just kind of give you guys a visual of what we expect our defensive line and our linebackers to get to the quarterback on a 5-man pressure. Those are our 5 kill zones. All right, so I figured the best place to start when talking about a fire zone is verse 2x2 in the middle of the field. So I got that same blitz drawn up here from the middle of the field. We're going to bring let me go back and apologize. For us at UWF, we are a 3-4, 2 high safety field boundary team. So we have a field outside linebacker, a field safety, and a field inside linebacker. And then we have a boundary safety, a boundary outside linebacker, and a boundary inside linebacker. These 3 guys always travel together, and the field 3 guys always travel together. We also have the same thing for the D-line. We're not getting too much in a D-line play today, so I'm not going to take time on that. But we are a field boundary team. So in this case, we would have called some sort of boundary 5-man pressure, and we would roll our safeties to the boundary. Now our corners are going to play, for the most part, basic cover 3 technique. They're going to play inside of number 1, and they're going to work to midpoint 1 and 2 if we get 2 verticals from each guy. Our boundary safety is now going to work down to 8 yards, play his seam, curl, flat technique on his number 2 threat, which we just kind of went through the different scenarios there. Our field outside linebacker here is now going to be at 6 yards, apexing the end man of the line of scrimmage and the number 2 receiver. He's going to execute that statue technique, which means if he gets any run action, he is just going to freeze. And he's going to hold until either the ball is handed off and he will trigger on run and fit, or once the quarterback pulls it, he will now work his seam, curl, flat, working inside hip of number 2. Again, he's going to hang and bang him, and he's going to play that same seam, curl, flat technique that we just talked about. The inside linebacker not blitzing is going to play the low hole or the hook right here in the middle of the field. He's also going to work the zone off of number 3, which in this case would be the running back based on where he's lined up. Okay. I drew the same blitz up with a 2x2 formation, but now on the hash. Not a whole lot is going to change except for the angle of the boundary safety might be a little tighter because the split of number 2 is not going to be as wide. And now our field nickel here, he might have to do what we call a performance alignment. He might have to abandon his apex just a little bit based on this split of number 2 and the distance it is from the end man of the line of scrimmage, because he doesn't have an immunity. So he might actually have to work a little closer to number 2, what we call a performance alignment. He might not be exactly apex between number 2 and the end man of the line of scrimmage, but he is still going to statue and still going to work to the inside hip of number 2. So all that's going to be the same. I'll stop right there. Coach, are we good? Coach G, any questions? I'm going to get a quick drink.
Yeah, we're good right now, Coach.
Okay. Like I said, in case you came in late, this is from my opinion, more of an open forum. I'm going to kind of facilitate, put some film on. Please, if you have questions, ask. There's more than one way to skin a cat, like I said. So please ask questions if you have any questions. If you want to see something again, if you want me to go back to a clip, and if you want to see a certain position, please do not hesitate to ask. I'm going to run this first clip from the jump. So we just got the signal on the sideline. Is it running pretty smooth, Coach?
Let me see.
Let me.
Are you slowing it down?
No, but I can. You want me to?
Yeah, slow it down.
Okay.
We got a couple. Got a couple questions here, Coach.
Perfect. I'll pause it. What's going on?
Yes, sir. Do you always run the blitz to the running back?
No. So like I said, on a pride, we're going to understand how a team uses the running back in protection, and if they're sliding to him or away from him. We do see some teams who will what we call cross country the running back. So in this case, if he's set up to the field, sometimes teams will use him and put him into the boundary side of the protection, cross country it. So the answer to that question is no. We'll go into a game with a handful of pressures to the running back, away from the running back, to the three-man surface, away from the three-man surface, to the field, to the boundary, all types of things. So we will use the running back as an indicator for our blitz, but we won't always do it to him or away from him. We'll do both.
If you're a base quarters team, how easy would it be to use this as a changeup?
It's real easy. So that's what when I talked about earlier, why you might want to run a fire zone. It is a really easy. The only when we spin to cover three based out of a 4 under 3 deep versus right now a fire zone, a 3 under 3 deep, the technique is a little bit different for our safety who is spinning to the middle third. There is a little slight difference in technique, but for the most part, everything is across the board the same.
Next question is, does this mean for a high school level, that the D end has to be a stud opposite of the blitz?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry, Coach, it was breaking up.
No, you're good. Does this mean for at the high school level that D end has to be a stud opposite the blitz?
Well, I'd say yes and no. I mean, essentially, he's going to have to be able to execute his kill zone. So if he's opposite the blitz, most likely he's going to be our upfield shoulder. So he's going to have to contain the quarterback on a blitz. Does he have to be an absolute stud? I say no. He just has to execute his assignment. If I answer that, I don't know.
And the last question here, Coach. Do you ever make a safety your hook if you're bringing both inside linebackers?
I love it. We're going to get to that here in a little bit. That's probably my favorite. That is my favorite, which I was going to get to here. I don't know, Coach. What time are we trying to be done by? What do we got?
You got time, Coach, man.
I know you got finals. I mean, it's Friday.
Whenever you finish up, I'll jump into it. So you're good.
We'll run a cross dog with our 2 inside linebackers, and we'll use either safety. We'll just tag it on who we want to replace him in the hook. So I'll get to that. I'll make sure I get to that.
We're good, Coach.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to run this again from the beginning. I'm going to slow forward it just so it doesn't jump around. So you can see we're in our base 3-4 here. And, kind of the beauty of the 3-4 is you got a lot of moving pieces, right? We got 8 guys on 2 feet that can move around. We've got a little more athleticism on the field. You can see our field outside linebacker is showing some blitz here. Our field inside linebacker is also showing a blitz over the guard. He's actually going to be our hook player. And we're going to bring the boundary outside linebacker and inside linebacker, which it's going to stop here in a second for you. Whoops, it ran through it. I apologize. Let me go back and – all right, so, again, pre-snap, I got our 3 underneath players circled. Our boundary safety is going to be working this boundary seam curl flat. Our field outside linebacker is working the field seam curl flat. You'll see him. It'll pause here again in a minute. He's going to work to the inside hip at number 2. He's going to hang and bang him at about 8 yards. And then our field inside linebacker is showing blitz. He's going to zone off a 3. He's also probably going to cheat a little more to the more space here to the field. And you see our 2 corners and our field safety have their middle thirds. I'm going to run it here. So here comes the boundary pressure. And then you can see our field outside linebacker executing inside hip at number 2. He's rerouting him. Okay, he's doing a great. Here's our hook player zoning off at number 3. The running back did cross-country protect here, and that pulled him to the field. And then on the boundary here, they kind of ran a switch exchange, 1 and 2. So number 2 became the new 1, and number 1 became the new 2. Now our boundary safety here playing the seam curl flat, he's not going to chase this right now. He's going to keep depth with number 1, get him vertical. You'll see our boundary corner here squeeze into his new vertical threat. We get pressure on the quarterback, and he's got to throw it in the dirt. Okay? I'll let this run here from the end zone. I'll show a couple end zone clips. Again, here's our field inside linebacker showing blitz. He's going to drop hook. Here's our boundary inside linebacker. He's going to be our contain blitzer. Our edge guy is now going to work to the near number. Our boundary defensive end is going to work to the bullseye. And then again, here's our field defensive end. He does have that upfield shoulder or contain. Okay, again, there's our boundary safety. I did want to go back and show him. He was a little hoppy or shuffly than we would like. We'd like a little more staggered foot movement from him if you want to watch our boundary safety here. And then here's our hook player finding the new number 3, and then we get a throw in the dirt.
Coach,
okay,
you got a couple questions here.
Yeah, Coach, go ahead.
How do you guys practice disguising the blitzes in practice to make everything look the same? And to add on that, how often do you call specific bluff blitzes?
So our defensive coordinator, I'll answer the second question first. Our defensive coordinator, Coach Doolin, and I apologize. Earlier I meant to talk about our defensive staff and our head coach. So I'll make sure I do that here. But Coach Doolin, phenomenal defensive coordinator. He will tag when he wants us to show blitzes. We'll tag when he wants us to have non-blitzers show a blitz. So we have specific tags for that. How often do we do it? That was the question, Coach G, I believe.
Yeah. How often do you call specific bluff blitzes?
I don't have a certain percentage on it. I mean, I can go back and look. I would say it's probably about a third of the time. I'd say about 33% of the time he will tag a call on our blitz that tells the non-blitzers, like you saw the field inside linebacker there, kind of showing a blitz but not coming. And then there was a first question. I forgot it already.
Yes, sir. It's how do you guys practice disguising the blitzes in practice to make everything look the same?
Good question. I think essentially it starts in individual. So our position coaches will work it in the drills as part of their drilling for when we work the certain technique here for our fire zones. And then it's doing it in practice. We will practice it. It's through film study, understanding the tempo that certain teams play at as well, and having a good sense of when to do it and when it's going to be beneficial, and when you might show or try to disguise something and it actually is detrimental to you because it gets you out of being able to execute your assignment, if that makes sense.
We're good, Coach.
All right, so national championship game here, 2x2. This is a 1st and 10. So I know it's been a minute. Let me I'll go back. I apologize. I'll pause it right before. So essentially, right, it's jumping around on me. I'm sorry. So essentially what we got going on here, we're getting our field inside linebacker. So now our boundary inside linebacker is going to play this hook. Our field outside linebacker is going to do the same thing we just saw. Inside hip and number 2, bang and hang, seam curl flat. We got our corners playing deep third and our field safety playing middle third. So like I just said, here's our 3 underneath players and there's our 3 deep. Okay, so you'll see our boundary safety here get hands on number 2. He does end up working to the outside shoulder of this number 2 and ends up rerouting him with his outside hands. Our nickel here does a great job getting depth and working underneath number 2, and then he does expand late to 1. And then our field corner, let me even run it back for you. So you can watch our field corner here. He starts on the top of the numbers, and then he does pre-snap disguise, and now he works to his midpoint of number 1 and number 2. So that's a great job by the field corner getting into a real good alignment here for 2 verticals. All right, I'm gonna play this. I'm jumping a little. Let's see. Here we go. It didn't pause when I wanted it to. Here we go. So again, there's our field outside linebacker, widening in number 2, hanging and banging him. Okay. And then here's our boundary seam curl flat player. Same thing, getting hands on number 2, rerouting. And then you'll see our field corner here come off of number 1, kind of late, but ends up squeezing to this vertical seam right here. Coach, you got a question?
Yeah, I got 2 here.
Yes, sir.
In this look, if the running back goes in motion to create empty, what's the adjustment? And then the question before was actually asking, will you keep the fire zone blitz on in empty?
Versus empty?
Yes.
Yep. So I have a 3-by-1 coming up here where West Georgia motioned to a 4-by-1 empty, and we ran it. So I'll get to that here very quickly.
Okay. Perfect.
And then the question was in this one, same thing. If the running back motions out, was it Coach G in this one? Okay. Yeah, we will still run the fire zone. We'll know at that point we have a 5-man pressure versus 5, so we've got 5 one-on-ones. That ball should ideally come out a lot quicker than it would if the running back stayed in and they had a 6-man protection. We'll still run the fire zone. If the running back let's say the running back, he is the number 3 that our non-blitzing boundary inside linebacker is zoning off of. So if this running back were to motion to the field, he would now immediately work his hook to the field, if that makes sense. So it's just really initially going to change the drop of this boundary inside linebacker. I'm going to, just for sake of time, the rest of these next coming up, we're all still 2-by-2. I'm going to go 3-by-1 on a hash here for y'all. So same blitz. We're blitzing. We're bringing the same blitz from the boundary versus 3-by-1. So just to understand the structure of our D in the 3-4, we get 3-by-1. What's going to happen is our linebackers we're going to make a call, and they're all going to bump to the field. So that field inside linebacker that was playing over here in basically a 30, he is now going to apex our end man on the line of scrimmage and the number 3 receiver. So he is, as you can see, he's in a little bit of a conflict. He's a B-gap player, and he is apexed out here in space. And then our boundary inside linebacker is now going to work to the field, and our boundary outside linebacker is now going to work and bump back inside the box. So here's how we structure our 3-4 defense versus 3-by-1. I see questions popping up, Coach.
Yes, sir. Coach said, I understand if you can't say, but do you name these different where the safety is going?
You were breaking up, Coach. Say that again.
He said, Coach said, I understand if you can't say, but do you name these different for where the safety is going?
So does he mean like the call? Yeah, well, like if the boundary safety is coming down, we have certain terms that represent the boundary safety, whether he's dropping here or you'll see later if we have time, we'll even slingshot our boundary safety either, into the hook. We'll even slingshot him to the field sometimes. And then same thing with our field safety. If we want to have him come down, we'll see here in a minute, he's got certain tags, whether he's going to come down on 2, come down on 3. We haven't really slingshotted our field safety to the boundary. But, yeah, we have certain tags within our fire zone that tells who is going to be replacing the blitzers.
We're good, Coach.
All right, so boundary, fire zone, boundary pressure versus 3-by-1. That boundary safety just understands now he really has no immediate seam threat, so he can kind of play a little more in the curl. The only thing, intricacy, maybe getting to 300, 400, 500 level, is if this number 1 split is squeezed or condensed, and we might get like a post wheel from the running back and him. So this number 1 could become his number 2 seam curl threat if his split is tight. So the biggest change here comes for our field inside linebacker, our Sam. Now that he's outside the box, he's going to execute that statue technique. So essentially, on any run action, he is going to hold and just freeze until once he knows the ball's handed off, he will trigger into that B gap, and we know he's going to be a little late on run. And then if he sees pass, he's now going to work to that inside hip of 3. Will now be not as drastic towards the weak side because his first immediate threats are number 3 and 2 right here. Field corner is doing the same thing, midpoint in 1 and 2. This boundary corner, we will tag him to where he could press bail this if he wants. And also it's going to kind of depend on if the running back's to his side or if he's away from him, and we have essentially a 4-by-1. If we do have a 4-by-1, which we'll see here in a minute, that also will change our boundary safety a little bit. Okay, so this is actually going to be a clip of some bad Playing Florida Tech here, we got 3-by-1 pistol. So the running back really hasn't been designated whether he's in the boundary or to the field. So I'll let this run a couple times, but here's our field inside linebacker who is now apexed between number 3 and the end man. And then here's our boundary safety who really has no immediate seam threat. And you'll see he actually, this is a minus RTA for our boundary safety here because he doesn't really execute his assignment well. I shouldn't say really. He doesn't execute his assignment well. And really he should be making this tackle for probably about a 3-yard gain. But you'll see here our field inside linebacker who's apexed and executing that statue technique makes the tackle for a 7-yard gain. So this is really not a great call against what Florida Tech runs here. They run a one-back power scheme away from the blitz. So essentially when this guard pulls, they're eliminating one gap in our boundary side here and adding a gap to the field side. So they're adding a gap where we already have a guy in conflict, and they're removing a gap from where we're bringing the blitz. But I'll let this run a couple times. You'll see the statue technique, and you'll see poor technique here from our boundary safety. I want to put some good and bad in here. So I'm going to run it and see it. Let's see how it looks. Okay, our boundary safety should not be pedaling out. He should be coming down making the tackle right now. But you will see our field inside linebacker who was apexed ends up making that tackle for us at a 7-yard gain. But watch him statue, and once he sees it's handed off, he triggers and makes the tackle for us. So kind of showing fire zones against the pass and run. Okay. Again, this was our boundary safety's tackle to make for probably about a 2-yard gain. Also, from the end zone real quick, you can see the statue here, again, by that same field inside linebacker who's apexed. We ended up kind of bumping and stacking here with our boundary inside and boundary outside linebacker. You'll see this guard pull and add a gap to the front side. It eliminates a gap from the back side. Our long sticker here ends up getting cut off by the tackle, and we end up with 3 guys in the C gap, which, you don't got to be a rocket science to know that's not good. So I pause it here. You'll see we end up with 3 guys in the C gap. Again, here's our statue player who sees run and triggers and makes the tackle over here in the boundary, opposite side for a 7-yard gain. All right. And you did see he really, we talk about tackling the football here. You'll see his hand on the ball. He probably could have had a little better rake. That isn't a bad attempt at the ball. All right. Let's look at one more 3-by-1. Let's see. This is a pass play. Let me pull this. Coach, no questions yet?
We're good right now, Coach.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look at this one 3-by-1, and then we'll go to that empty, and we'll look at it against empty where they went to 4-by-1. So national championship game, they're in a 11 personnel tray formation, 3-by-1. The back is to the strong side. It's really a 4-by-1 right now. So I got a little dot here in our boundary safety. He really knows he has no immediate seam threat. He's going to get big vision over here on 4, 3, and 2. And if nothing is immediately coming, I mean, he's got a little bit of freedom here. And you'll see him undercut 1 pretty quickly, and a decent pass, he might have had a chance at making a play on it. You're also going to see here in a second our field outside linebacker. We get a drive concept here. We get an under by number 2, and we end up getting an over by the tight end. He does a great job of letting the under go to our low hole or hook player, and then getting hands on his new number 2, the tight end. I'm going to let it run. You can see kind of the things that I was talking through. You'll see our boundary safety here trying to make a play. He knows in 4-by-1 he can take a little more risk on here on the one side. Watching it from the end zone. There's a tight shot from the end zone right here. Again, here's our field outside linebacker, field inside. Again, he's inside hip of 3. He's going to statue number 2 and number 3. They're going to do a great job pass concept. And you can see our boundary safety. Watch his eyes. He's got big vision. Let me go to the next pause. He knows here's 4, here's 3, and he sees both of them eliminate themselves, and he immediately snaps his eyes to 1 and gets out underneath them. He probably could have went even a little faster. All right. I'm going to skip this next 3-by-1 against Wingate. That was the one time we ran it against them. And I want to go, we talked about motion into empty. So here's West Georgia, week 6. I think we ran, what did I say earlier, 7 snaps of a fire zone against these guys. So pre-snap right now, back's about to motion out. We're running that same boundary fire zone. Our boundary inside linebacker, boundary outside linebacker are coming. Here's our field inside linebacker. He's apexed between number 3 and the end man. We're running that same fire zone. Now, if we had some sort of man call on here, you can imagine banjoing or comboing this bunch up here. We'd get motion to empty 4x1. Okay, snap the ball. I wanted to pause it before that. I apologize. We're going to execute the same thing. Just our boundary safety knows he really has no immediate, we almost solo this guy, and now he's going to work a slingshot technique and work across the field. And he probably can do it a little faster than you see on film, but he's going to slingshot across the field and work inside of our Sam here, our field inside linebacker. They end up throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage and not completing it. You can see that, they got 3 blockers for 4 guys. We're working him there, and then he's going to get there. So that was an example of motion into empty 4x1. You can imagine if we had some sort of man called behind a 5-man pressure, we would have had to practice probably how we're going to banjo or pass that off. Coach G?
Yes, sir. Question here. Do you prefer calling fire zone from a hash or middle of the field, and why?
That's a good question. I would say hash because without too much, you can get a little more exotic when the ball's on a hash in terms of you can use some of these guys. If you want to get exotic and drop D linemen, on a hash, you can imagine dropping your boundary defensive end into that boundary seam curl flat. There's not a whole lot of space to operate. For us, being a 3-4 defense, middle of the field, we can hold our disguise a little bit better, and we don't have anyone in immediate conflict like we just saw versus 3x1. Does that make sense, Coach?
And another question here, Coach. Will you guys ever blitz your corner?
Our defensive coordinator, Coach Doolin, has a PTSD with a corner 2018 against Valdosta. We ran a corner blitz, and the quarterback, gosh, I can't think of his name right now, really good player. He's got 1 more year. He ended up scrambling and taking off for like a 90-yard touchdown run. So I don't know if we ran a single corner blitz in 2019. I don't think we did. But, you could see if you wanted to blitz the boundary corner, like I said, especially against 3x1, it might not be a bad idea. Was that it, Coach?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wanted to take a second here to go over, again, being a field boundary team, we could run a field blitz and run a fire zone behind it. Now our field safety is going to be our seam curl flat player. Like someone asked earlier, we would just obviously bring in pressure from the field. We would tag our fire zone behind it with our field safety replacing that and playing the field seam curl flat. Our Mike linebacker, you will see here, he will performance align and actually move a little bit to the strong side. He'll zone off a number 3 or work to the middle hook. And then our boundary outside linebacker now is going to work that same seam curl flat inside hip at number 2, hang and bang, let the ball take him to the flat. Got a question, Coach?
Yeah, yes, sir. One just came in. Will you guys ever blitz peel? So Sam off the edge sees running back swing out. Will he not blitz and cover the running back?
We won't do that out of 5-man stuff. We do have some 6-man stuff where we will do some blitz and peel with him. I do have one at the very end where out of our 3-4, we will use our Wills, our 4th defensive end, and we actually peel our field end, and then we peel our field outside linebacker. So if I got time, I'll get to that clip as well. But again, here's a field pressure and rotating a fire zone to the field. I got one clip of this right here. It's going to pause in a second. This is a good job by our Mike. He does performance align, and he does work to the middle. Now I'm going to let it pause here again in a second. I want to show a poor example of our boundary outside linebacker getting no hands on number 2. And then our field safety playing seam curl flat and getting no hands on number 2 as well. And this dude's running somewhat naked here for a minute up the seam. Let me let it run. You can see, okay, not very good here. Luckily, we had a free blitzer off the edge. He didn't make the play, but he did affect the quarterback enough to make him scramble, and then the option to throw wasn't there. But again, the main thing was showing you guys the rotation. Our field safety comes down and plays the seam curl flat. Our boundary safety is going to play the middle third. Both corners still playing that same deep third technique, midpointing 1 and 2. Okay, missed the sack, but we did affect the quarterback enough. And, not a great clip, but not bad. All right. Again, some of the beauty of a fire zone is we can bring a field pressure and be okay with them having trips to the field because we can still run our fire zone. And Mike knows he's gapped out on the front side, so he can performance align and work a little closer to his inside hip of 3. Our boundary outside linebacker really has no immediate seam, so he's going to play curl and then let the ball take him to the flat. Our boundary safety's got to work a little bit harder now. He has no number 2 to the boundary immediately, so he's going to have to take a little bit more drastic angle to the middle third. Everything else is the same. So that's kind of the beauty. And then this clip I put on here on purpose, this is actually, we're up 2 scores. It's late in the game. We're playing West Alabama. It's clip 184. There's not much time left. They need 2 scores. So we're in kind of our modifiable 2 corners. We got 3 of our best pass rushing defensive linemen in. We have our boundary outside linebacker playing Mike, or our middle linebacker, and we got 2 nickels on the field playing outside linebacker. But the way we structure our defense is we can make the same calls out of different personnel groupings and still execute it. So you're going to see here our field safety becomes our field seam curl flat player. Our middle third, our middle safety of the 3, he's going to work to the inside hip of 3. Now our boundary outside linebacker shouldn't have been blitzing here, so we end up with a 6-man pressure, and we end up playing 2 under 3 deep, and we end up being all right. We do have that in the playbook, just it wasn't called here. I'm going to let this run, and then Coach, I see you got a question.
Yes, sir.
So you can see, let me let that play and pause. Okay, there's our 2 underneath players. Again, we should have had a boundary guy playing underneath the 1 right here. He's working inside hip of 2. 2 goes out. He's going to sit. He's working inside hip of 3 and getting ready to collision and carry. We get pressure on the quarterback, and then he's got to throw it away. Go ahead, Coach G.
Since no peel, can you talk about fitting the 2-3 exchange if the back is fast out?
Yeah, 3-by-1 in the back, fast out. Let me, with pressure coming from there, let me go back to here. Like basically out of this, is out.
Coach, out of that look, Coach Henderson, out of that look. Well, he said or 2-by-2.
Okay. I mean, if the back swings, that's really a no cover zone for us. And like I said, understanding when to call a fire zone, we're okay with them, throwing a swing. And then whether it's 2-by-2 or 3-by-1, in this case, this field seam curl flat player will have to end up rallying to it. And again, we got 6 eyes that will end up taking themselves to the ball, and then we'll have to rally and tackle it. And, down in distance, we'll have to be okay with them throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage and us coming up, vicing the ball and making a tackle. Do you want me to does that suffice or go more into it?
Coach, we good? Yes,
I mean,
we're good.
Essentially, we have to be okay with them throwing a swing behind the line of scrimmage and then us getting there. I believe the next thing I have is the question that was asked earlier. I'm gonna skip this formation into boundary. So here's an example. I know someone asked the question earlier, do we ever place them in the hook? Yes, we do. So essentially, it's the same thing we did earlier for the outside linebackers. They're playing that same seam curl flat technique. You just have to structure your defense to be able to tag which safety you want to replace that middle hook. So we have Coach Doolin, we have a system in place that we will tag which safety we want to replace the middle 2 blitzing linebackers. This field safety also needs to understand that he does have B-gap responsibility. He is our 6th box defender. So as he works to that hook, he does have immediate B-gap run responsibility. Again, like I said, our two outside linebackers are playing that same seam curl flat on number 2. Our corners are playing that same 2x2 deep third rule. And then whichever safety's rolling to the middle, same thing. So I'll roll this one clip. This is against Florida Tech. The ball did end up being on a hash. One thing I meant to go over earlier, for college coaches or high school coaches, the first time when we played Florida Tech here week 7, it was our first game on a field that had both high school and college hashes. So we did have some issues with our safeties aligning off the wrong hash. So something for maybe college coaches out there, I'm sure y'all have troubleshooted it before, but something that we had to troubleshoot after the fact was that our safeties sometimes aligned off the high school hash, which is obviously wider than the college hash. Let me let this run till I got the pause. So again, we're bringing our 2 inside linebackers on a cross dog. We're going to take our field safety and roll him down into the middle hook. Here's our 2 outside linebackers playing that same seam curl flat. And then we got our normal deep third from the boundary safety and the 2 corners. Now they end up throwing quick game. They throw a boundary hitch on us. This corner would be a minus Arte for his technique. If we got real deep into technique, this would be minus Arte. Doesn't play with great technique. Our boundary outside linebacker, does his job in terms of executing inside hip at number 2. I'll let this roll. And they throw a boundary hitch. This is late in the game, clip 187. We got some 3s and 4s in the game. But again, here's an example of using the safeties to replace the 2 inside linebackers. And then I also got that drawn up for you versus 3x1. If we call that same blitz versus 3x1, now the way our defense is structured, that field inside linebacker will still apex. He might performance align and play a little bit closer to the box. He might not quite apex it, but now that field safety is going to work inside hip of his 3, and that boundary safety's got a more drastic angle to get to his immediate middle third threat 3-2. Our nickel is going to apex 3 and 2, doing the same seam curl flat, working inside hip at number 2. I like this one a lot as well, so I'll let this one roll. But again, our field safety is playing that middle hook, and I mean it's really more natural for him just to now play inside hip of 3, and our spacing's even a lot better for our linebackers, our underneath players. Let me go to the clip. So this was against Virginia Lynchburg, our first home game, week 3. Let me go back and pause it pre-snap. So we're going to end up blitzing our field inside, both inside linebackers, sorry. Here's our field outside linebacker. He's going to work inside hip of 2. And then here's our field safety almost stacked behind him. And then he's going to stagger step movement and work inside and play in 3 underneath players. Our boundary safety, middle third, and our 2 corners, deep third. Our field safety does a good job getting his eyes to 3. 3 eliminated himself, and he ended up getting his eyes right to 2. They throw a boundary tunnel slip smoke screen here. The ball ends up being completed, and we got to rally to the football there. But there's an example, again, of versus 3x1, blitzing both inside linebackers and using our field safety to replace them, in this case, versus 3x1. And again, good job. 3-1 out, got his eyes to 2, found his new number 3, even though the ball was thrown here away from him. All right, here's the national championship against Minnesota Mankato. Coach Doodlin's note on here, good job by the safeties in rotation. So here's our field outside linebacker going to work inside hip of 2. Here's our field safety going to replace our 2 blitzing inside linebackers and work inside hip of 3. Now they end up RPOing this and run quick game. Now this was called on 2nd and 17. They end up getting an 8-yard gain, and it's still going to be 3rd and long, 3rd and 9. So again, understanding when you want to run a fire zone and what you want to run it against. And being okay with them getting 8 yards on 2nd and 17. So in our disguise, that safety is going to be a little late to number 3 here, but he does end up coming down and making the tackle. And then, like I said, for an 8-yard gain, and we get him to 3rd and 9, which we're okay with them being in 3rd and 9. I don't know if I wanted to watch the end zone shot on this one or not. Nah, we'll move on.
Coach, the clip before this this last one, so if you can go back 2 clips.
Yes, sir, right here, Lynchburg.
Yeah. So the question was asked: any problems with 3 running that crash route here with the field safety starting outside?
Number 3 running what route?
Field safety working inside. He said a crash route, Coach.
Yeah, I need clarification on what they define as a crash.
A vertical. Back.
Okay, we're gonna see that on the next clip. So can I pull up the next clip?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, let's look at it here in the next clip. So it is 11 personnel and not 10. So it's maybe a little bit different, but it's the same call right now. We're gonna be blitzing our 2 inside linebackers. Our field safety is gonna work inside HIPAA 3 to replace him, and he actually has a greater distance to go now that number 3 is attached and it's a tight end versus a slot. Again, maybe a little bit less athletic ability, but he does have a longer distance to go. So I got to pause here in a minute for y'all to see. So again, I circled our 3 underneath players. Here's our boundary outside linebacker. He knows it's 3-by-1, backs in. They haven't been putting the back out. He does a great job here. You'll see in a second. Here's our field outside linebacker going to work to the inside HIPAA 2. And I think this guy ends up running a dig if I recall correctly, and he stays inside that dig. Number 3 does work vertical and break it off, but you will see our field safety work to cover the vertical, and then he covers the dig. So I hope this does suffice that question. But then you see our 2 corners and our boundary safety playing their deep thirds. So you'll see that field safety. And he does ideally inside of 3. In this case, he gets pretty much head up on him, doesn't get inside of him, but he was a little more removed being a tight end. He could have helped himself out maybe pre-snap and started working a little bit off the hash. You'll see at this point, great job by our boundary outside linebacker. He knew the situation here, 3rd and 10. The back stayed in, and he basically ran underneath number 1 and got in this curl window. Quarterback wants this throw right now for a first down. He's got to hold on to the football. Again, here's our 3 underneath players. Here's our our field outside linebacker inside of number 2. Here's our field safety working the vertical dig of number 3. And then here's our field corner. He's really mid-pointing 1 and 2. Now, number 1 does sit it down, and that's the throw we want these guys to make. The ball's on this far hash. We want them to try to throw this long, deep out for a first down, and then we'll drive on it. But again, he wanted this boundary curl out. Our boundary outside linebacker did a great job getting underneath it. Quarterback has to pull it down, and then our 5-man pressure gets home for a sack. I don't know if this is a great view of our field safety working in here. I got to remember, working in here to number 3. You can see, yeah, he does give up inside leverage a little bit, but he's going to have to play over that top shoulder and then play the ball if number 3 kept going vertical. I'll pause it real quick. This is the last one I got. Any questions, Coach G?
We're good, Coach.
All right, I got 2 last clips here. Bringing it's verse 3-by-1, so we do have to adjust our basic structure of our defense, our 3-4 alignment. But we're going to bring our 2 inside linebackers. I know this guy is now removed from the box. We're still going to bring him, and then using our boundary safety to replace them now in that middle hook area. And then keeping our boundary outside linebacker here for anything in the curl to late flat in the boundary. Texan 3 and 2 playing inside HIPAA 2. He's going to play that curl at the ball, take him to the flat. All right. This next clip is against Virginia Lynchburg. Okay, we got 3-by-1. I'm gonna let it pause here in a minute. So this is the question was asked earlier. So we have it really becomes a 4-man pressure, but we end up peeling our boundary outside linebacker who's walked up to rush, and then we end up dropping our field defensive end out here to the field. And we don't expect him really to get any depth, but just to drop for any type of screen. And you'll see, again, our boundary safety, he's going to end up slingshotting from the boundary to the inside hip of 3, working really across the field to 8 yards inside hip of 3. Our field safety and our 2 corners playing deep third. This is essentially our boundary seam curl flat player walked up on the line. Okay, they end up running a screen. They got linemen downfield. The ball goes downfield. I mean, it's kind of a sloppy clip. I didn't want to use it, but I did want to show our boundary safety here, slingshot in to replace. Then over to field call on for our field defensive end and our boundary outside linebacker. Okay, just kind of want to show that. And the question was asked, so it actually ended up working out pretty well. You will see here, here's our boundary safety. He's going to slingshot over here and replace number 19 blitzing. 3 eliminated himself, so he was actually in better shape. This last clip is against Valdosta. But based on the 3-by-1 alignment, we ended up having checking it, and he ended up just basically working inside a hip of 3. This is actually just a 3-man pressure. Again, I talked about this quarterback from Valdosta being a dude. So we got a 3-man pressure. We got a double spy going on here with our boundary outside linebacker and our boundary inside linebacker. The original call was for our boundary safety to slingshot, but based on the formation, we checked it, and he's going to replace. I'm going to let this one run. Again, here's our 3 underneath players. Our field outside linebacker, our field inside linebacker, and our boundary safety. And there are 3 deep. Okay. So you see these 2 right now. They're spying. Our boundary guy is kind of bracketing the quarterback in this swing. Our field outside linebacker does a great job here, not taking the bait, not coming down on the shallow. This is a 3rd and 13. They want this curl right here, this curl to dig. This is the window that they wanted to hit. Our field outside linebacker does a great job not taking any bait in front of him and not getting too wide and sitting in that window. Quarterback has to check down. Again, 3rd and 13. We want the ball thrown out here. And then you'll see our outside linebacker do a great job rallying, does a great job tackling, keeping it, and then getting a stop. 3rd and 13, getting off the field, 3-yard pass. That's all I got, Coach, in terms of film and anything like that. I don't know if you have any further questions, if anybody has anything that they wanted to ask.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, just drop it in. I know earlier, Coach, let me just get back to it.
Yeah.
It was asked just in regards to the defensive point list and that Google sheet, if it would be available to anybody if possible.
I can pull it up. Yeah. Just if the person is still in the room, I know it's Friday. Where are we at here? Trying to find it for you. Oh, wait, I'm going the wrong way. Yeah, I can make it available. Just have them reach out. If they're still in the room, just reach out to me. Let me put my contact information back up.
Yeah, please do.
You can email me or just message me on Twitter. There's my email address. There's my Twitter. I know Coach G tweeted out my information as well, so if you're in here, you can probably find that the same way.
Question here, Coach.
Yep.
What are the deep third depths and techniques?
In terms of our corners?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So like I said, whether it's a 3 under 4 deep or just a traditional cover 3, our corners generally play inside the frame of number 1 pre-snap, and then they'll work. And again, we talk about basic alignment and performance alignment based on the split of number 1 and number 2, but they will work in their deep third inside number 1 and read 1 to 2 in their deep third. We talk about midpointing 1 to 2. I don't know how much technique they want to get. It's going to be hard to kind of talk through it. That might be a whole nother either discussion or talk, but how we play cover 3 with corners.
Gotcha. Let me see here. Any other questions, guys? Obviously, his contact information is there, so definitely reach out if you guys have any questions. But yeah, no, I agreed. Great presentation, Coach. Obviously, if you can see the chat, man, there's a lot of positive feedback for sure. Coach.
And I mean, like we kind of prefaced earlier, like a fire zone, it can't be obviously your only go-to. It can't be something you live in all the time. It's got to be a change-up and understanding when that 5-man pressure is, most likely going to get home for you and force that quarterback to get rid of the ball quick. Trying to get, 5 one-on-ones or 4 one-on-ones, versus a 6-man protection. But it's not something we live in. I mean, as you saw, we only ran it about 3 snaps a game, about 4% of the time last year.
No, for sure. But yeah, Coach, there's a lot of if you pull up the chat, a lot of positive feedback for you.
I don't know how to pull up the chat.
Do you see it on the bottom?
I see it. Yeah, I see you.
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate it, guys. Good stuff. Like I said, I really wanted this to be more like just me facilitating, and you guys ask great questions. I see here Coach Todd Thatcher. Is he still here?
Yeah.
Coach Thatcher, you're still here? We will bring 5 and run a 4 under 2 deep, and basically we're just going to void that middle hook. So those 2 outside linebackers, we tell them they really got to be I don't know the word, but they got to really stay. We have a tag on it. I don't know how much terminology I want to put out there, but we will add an extra tag to our cover 2 that tells those 2 hook to curl players essentially that they really need to stay on that inside hip of number 2 and carry that seam and not let anything get underneath them, because we're now basically voiding that middle hook. But that is a good mix-up. If you want to bring 5 and have an extra guy playing underneath, we will run a 4 under 2 deep. That is a good answer. Like I saw showed in that one clip, we also will bring 5 or 6 and run a 2 under 3 deep, which would be another whole long hour discussion that we've kind of trial and error through, and it's been a little bit of an experiment with us, but it's shown good results for us. I'm scrolling through it. Coach Watt, still in here. We could talk about cover 3 technique. Just go ahead and reach out anytime.
Yeah, we got to all the other ones, Coach.
Okay, cool.
Awesome, man.
Right.
Well,
Yes, sir.
I definitely appreciate obviously all the coaches who took the time out to come in and listen, and obviously, of course, Coach Hofman, to you for giving us a great presentation, man. It was awesome. So
been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Please reach out, guys. I love getting with everybody. So anybody that's still here that wants to reach out anytime, man, just get at me. Let's get together.
There you go.